Andy Dennison,
Present.
Ben Vitale,
Present.
Grant Kyle,
Here.
Paul Pickney,
Here.
Aileen McNabb Coleman,
Present.
Joseph DeForest,
Here.
Terry Baxter,
Aye.
Joseph Bennett,
Here.
Frank Reginelli,
Here.
Patrick Mahonik,
Here.
Timothy Lattimore is excused, Michael Didio,
Here.
Ryan Foley,
Present.
Keith Batman.
Here. Okay. We could rise for the pledge, and thank you for your thoughts on my mother's passing. Thank you. Okay, I think we have several members of the public who wish to be heard. I think is Deb Lewis, member of the Finger Lakes Library System. Deb, come on up. If you could state your name, your address, and please limit your comments to 3 to 5 minutes.
My name is Deborah Lewis, and I recently moved back to my family home at 12 Evergreen Street, Union Springs, New York.
Hey, time's up.
Oh, come on.
Out of order.
Union Springs is a nice place.
I've always wanted to do that. Thank you for giving me the chance, Terry.
Thank you, Mr. Batman, for putting us on the agenda to speak to you and your colleagues about the public libraries in Cayuga County. I am a member of the Board of Trustees of the Finger Lakes Library System, elected by the libraries in Cayuga County to represent them in the system. Sue Honor is the other board member from Cayuga County. We wished to take this time to thank you for the funding in this year's county budget for Cayuga County Public Libraries. We fully appreciate what it took to provide this funding. The libraries are using this funding to help offset costs of the shared online catalog and circulation system. We call it Polaris by its brand name. It's run by the Finger Lakes Library System on behalf of the 33 public libraries in the system's 5-county area. That system links the libraries and facilitates sharing materials throughout the region. For example, after seeing our electrical bill, yikes, I used the online catalog to find and request one of the kilowatt meter kits that Tompkins County Public Library has, and picked it up at the Springport Library after a day or two because the system had brought it up with delivery system. I'll be using it to see what the energy hogs are in our home. Public libraries continue to be vital to members of the community. The 2016 Cayuga Connect statistics we provided show how vital they are, and I believe this document was provided to everybody. Libraries serve as community centers and provide services often not available elsewhere in the community. Wi-Fi, broadband, internet access, computers, and printing are now key services in public libraries, although not the only services. Access is required these days for tasks such as finding and applying for even the lowest level jobs, accessing benefits information and forms, finding legal forms and information, finding and using government information and resources. For kids, schoolwork more and more involves computers and internet access. If they don't have a computer with broadband access at home, they need public libraries to do their homework. Access to the internet can also help level the playing field for them. One of my previous coworkers said his teenage son received great grades on a school project on which he collaborated with a teen from Sweden whom he'd met in an online game. In our global economy, having that level of global awareness can be a game changer for somebody, even a kid. For adults, computers are required for most jobs now, yet if someone doesn't have a job already, where else can they learn how to use a computer? Libraries also help people create and submit resumes. And there are computers now at some of the stores where people can use them to apply for jobs, But from my experience seeing people struggling with the online application forms, we know that libraries can help people do that work and uploading their resumes. So having just a computer sitting there isn't necessarily good enough. Libraries were built on the concept of cooperation, whether sharing materials or providing or creating programs and services together, and in partnership with community organizations. Ready-to-read early literacy programs, outreach to schools, and local history projects are examples of this cooperation. I believe the Seymour Public Library is partnering with schools with their local history department. I've seen wonderful posters that they've done working with the next graduating class on what was happening back when. So getting the kids involved in history, not just reading words on pages, is really great, and that's some of the things that they can do in a public library. Public libraries provide adult programming, including literacy programs and access to English as a second language tools, such as the Mango Languages database. Libraries help grandparents learn to use the devices they got for Christmas. We do a lot of that. Libraries provide both direct and indirect benefits to the community by lifting up members of the community who might not otherwise have the tools to do so. The more members of the community who have jobs and who can move forward reduce the amount of social services burden you have. So libraries can help with that by helping everybody in the community. Just a note, the largest concern that we have at the Finger Lakes Library System right now is that, as I'm sure you know, Governor Cuomo has negotiated the right to make mid-year state budget cuts based on federal budget cuts. There is no indication what a mid-year budget cut might look like should it be triggered, but we should anticipate having to fight for library funding in the state budget again mid-year. There are two potential impacts for the Cayuga County Public Libraries. The first is the threat of loss of state aid revenue already in their budgets. The second impact is a matter of timing. 9 years ago, when budget cuts were looming, the Office of Budget held on to the state aid to our local libraries for a long time before releasing it. So local libraries should anticipate receiving funding very late again this year. That does create a burden on the libraries, so just please be aware of that. Studies continue to show that even people who don't use libraries value and support them for the direct and indirect benefits which flow to the community. So again, we appreciate that you recognize this and chose to support the public libraries this year. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very
Do we have
much.
a copy of that to put with the minutes?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And I think, Mr. Green, Charlie, you here? So again, Charlie, if you can state your name and your address. And,
Charlie Green,
well,
4102.
Will you come up here so people can hear you? Thanks.
My name is Charlie Green. I live at 4102 Murray Road in the town of Niles. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm here to encourage the legislature to consider by policy or other methods to designate Cayuga County as what's popularly called a sanctuary county. I'd like to start with the last several verses of the Statue of Liberty poem, which most of you have heard. Keep ancient lands, your storied pomp, cries she with silent lips. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. Many of us, our great-grandfathers, great-great-grandfathers, and such, arrived at the United States during the time these words the New York State Attorney General's office recognizes that by protecting the rights and well-being of immigrant families, we build trust in law enforcement and other public agencies, thus enhancing public safety for all. As you know, justice cannot be served when a victim of domestic violence or a witness to a shooting does not call the police because she fears that doing so will attract the attention of officials who wish to deport her family members. That's why standing together in this time of uncertainty is our most effective tool for keeping our communities safe. That's a quote from New York State Attorney General Eric Schneiderman. The Attorney General has in a document that was published in January, has stated the following. The United States Supreme Court recognized in Arizona versus the United States, as a general rule, it is not a crime for a removable alien to remain present in the United States. Undocumented aliens, like other New Yorkers, are afforded certain rights by the New York State and United States constitutions. Local law agencies, which is going to be abbreviated in the further items as LEAs, local enforcement agencies, retain significant discretion regarding whether and how to participate in federal immigration enforcement. LEAs, local enforcement agencies, nonetheless must adhere to the requirements. The Office of Attorney General believes that effective implementation of the policies set forth in this guidance, which I will outline, can help foster a relationship of trust between law enforcement officials and immigrants that will, in turn, promote public safety for all New Yorkers. The Attorney General's guidance recommends 8 basic measures. Law enforcement agencies should not engage in certain activities solely for the purpose of enforcing federal immigration laws. Absent a judicial warrant, law enforcement agencies should honor U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, which is, the acronym is ICE, or Customs and Border Protection detainer requests only in limited specified circumstances. Absent a judicial warrant, local enforcement agencies should not honor ICE requests for certain non-public sensitive information about an individual. Law enforcement agencies should not provide ICE with access to individuals in their custody for questioning solely for immigration enforcement purposes. Law enforcement agencies should protect the due process rights of persons as to whom federal immigration enforcement requests have been made, including providing these persons with appropriate notice. Local agency resources should not be used to create a federal registry based on race, gender, sexual orientation, religion, ethnicity, or national origin. Local agencies should limit collection of immigrant-related information and ensure non-discriminatory access to benefits and services. Local enforcement agencies should collect and report data to the public regarding detainer and notification requests from the customs in order to monitor their compliance with applicable laws. And according to the Attorney General, state and federal law permits localities to adopt these proposed measures. According to a 2017 Center for American Progress report, which defines sanctuary counties as those that do not assist federal immigration enforcement officials by holding people in custody beyond their release date, crime is lower, median household income is higher, poverty is lower, reliance on public assistance is lower, labor force participation is higher, the employment to population ratio is higher, and unemployment is lower. And finally, jurisdictions that have enacted policies which limit cooperation with the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement The most recent was the city of Ithaca in 2017. It did it by a municipal code change. It states that it will honor warrantless detainer from the federal government under special circumstances such as violent or serious crimes or terrorist activities. In August of 2014, Franklin and St. Lawrence counties, by a county sheriff's office decision, decided they will not honor ICE detainers without warrants. And in July of 2014, Onondaga and Wayne counties, by a county sheriff's office decision, decided they will not honor an ICE detainer without a signed judicial warrant. In conclusion, I would just like to say that St. Lawrence, Franklin, and Wayne counties are counties somewhat similar to Cayuga County in that they're rural counties that don't particularly have the influence of a large city. And I encourage you to take this up for consideration amongst yourselves. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jerry.
Okay. Are there any other members of the public that would like to be heard? Very good. In that case, could I have a motion to dispense with the reading of the minutes and to approve, say?
Motion.
Mr. Dennison, second. Mr. Didio? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Dr. Durant?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, everyone. Just a few brief items. It certainly has been really a follow-up to our advocacy efforts at the state level in watching the legislative process for budget development. As I'm sure many of you are aware, we, the community colleges, were asking to be held harmless, keep our funding level, and in the end, the legislature approved a $50 increase per FTE, which is falls significantly short to what we're hopeful for. And although a $50 increase sounds like we should be result in getting more money, the way that we're funded in community colleges from a state perspective is you have a funded number of FTE based on a previous 3 years weighted formula that then results in what's actually aidable towards a particular dollar amount. So given that in the last number of years the college has experienced a decline in enrollment, the $50 increase in base aid will actually result in a couple $100,000 loss of support from the state when it comes to our budget development for next year. Speaking of our budget development, our trustees tomorrow night will be considering our tuition and fee schedule for next year. We are in the process, now that we know what the state will be giving us, we're in the process of actually developing our overall budget. Our expected timeline is to have the trustees consider our tuition and fee schedule tomorrow. And then in May, our goal is to bring the full budget to them in May to then begin the advocacy efforts here at the county for your support and eventual approval of our draft budget. You know, we're very committed, our trustees are very committed to keeping the institution as affordable as possible. And we've talked a lot about college affordability in recent weeks, months. For me, it's been a lifetime, but when we're looking at it, we've been also thinking about the Excelsior scholarship. So one of the positives for public education at the end in the legislative process was the approval of the Excelsior scholarship, which will allow middle-class New Yorkers, eventually up to a family income of $125,000, to, if they choose to apply and accept, and there are certain parameters for that, would be able to go tuition-free to Cayuga Community College. And that certainly is something that we think will help support individuals that seek that out and certainly apply for it in the coming weeks. We're in the early stages of really trying to go over the details of how it supports students, the number of students at our institution that could be impacted, the number of students or percentage of students that have applied to the institution for the fall. And what we'll look to do in the coming weeks probably is to put out some information sessions and offer them for students and community residents to be able to come in and gather some more detailed and personal information on how it could affect them. And we feel very fortunate that this new program will be able to support people and hopefully to give us even more consideration for a place to pursue higher education as part of their choice. But also with that, our trustees have had great leadership in supporting us in what can we do to keep our costs down, to keep our tuition affordable, and our tuition and fee schedule for it. I'll be proposing to our trustees to consider only a 1% increase in tuition for next year. And although it's an increase, we believe we're going to be developing a budget that we'll be bringing to you that actually will be a decrease in overall budget. Last year, we brought you nearly a 5% reduction in our overall budget from the previous year. And this year, we're going to look to bring a budget that's going to be about $100,000, $75,000 to $100,000 in all likelihood below what we did a year ago. Because in the end, as I've said far too often, our revenues, expected revenues, need to match our actual expenditures, and we will be doing so. So we've been working diligently with our trustees, with the leadership group, and with our college community in creating our budget for next year. There are a number of positives, though, as I've been speaking about every month, and I hope that through September you'll hear me say the same thing over and over again. Our applications for fall continue to be up over 12% from a year ago this time. Our number of accepted students are up well over 12% from a year ago this time. And the closer we get to August in actual matriculation and enrollment for the fall semester, certainly the more comfortable we are that we'll be able to experience those types of that positive momentum in enrollment. So we're feeling as though that we are we're making our plans, we're making our decisions when it comes to areas of marketing and recruitment to try to at least make sure that students in our community are putting us on their list of consideration for places to pursue higher education, which is part of it. We want our chance to present what we can do and to help support people. So the more, one of the trends that's relatively new for community colleges in the last handful of years or so is we're seeing students that are actually applying to more schools and including community colleges in their applications to see, okay, where will it be financially, what would it be from a pathway from learning, and we think that that's a great thing for all of us. So we continue to be optimistic about those. We're actually looking to, at the end of this year, to be up about 40 FTE from where we budgeted or anticipated to be this year, which is significant for us. And we're hopeful that a year from now, we're actually going to experience even more FTE. So we, in simple terms, as simple as I can say it, we built a budget this year on 2510 full-time equivalency. We serve over 4,000 students. 2510 full-time equivalency. We expect to be closer to 2550 for this particular year, which is great. And we're hopeful that if everything holds true, that will actually be even higher than 2550 next year as we're building our expectations and where we're headed. So we certainly appreciate your support, and we'll continue to keep you updated on those areas. The last thing I just want to mention, we continue to look at some space opportunities on campus. We have a number, like you all know, number of critical maintenance needs and other needs, and we're really trying to fine tune and prioritize those particular items. So in the coming months, I'm sure I'll be sharing those needs with you, and hopefully together we can work on a way to address some of those needs and concerns for the college. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Other questions? Mr. Dennis?
Do you think there's any correlation between getting less money from the state with this whole free college thing? Because, nothing's free, so they got to pay for it somehow.
Well, I never want to speculate what goes through the legislature or the governor's mind, but, I don't know if it's related necessarily. I think that, community college, I believe I mentioned this last month, from a state aid perspective, from a county perspective, there's something in place called the maintenance of effort, right? So, with the generous support of $2.9 million, regardless of the number of students from Cayuga County who enroll in our current model, who enroll at Cayuga, that's called the maintenance of effort that the county sponsor needs to support. At the state level, it's historically been a per FTE model. So, in the years where your number of students were continually on the rise, a $50 increase could be a swing the other way and actually be a $250,000 increase. So when you're looking at a point of continued decline, and we're not alone, I think pretty much 28 of the 30 community colleges have had significant decline in the last number of years. We're not alone, it's not unique to us. That's where it feels as though that you're always sort of moving down the other way, even when you're getting natural increases. So the most recent years, if I just off the top of my head, there have been $75 increases, $100 increases, $100 increases, and that has ended up resulted being in the general vicinity of where the increases have gone. Go back 10 or 12 years ago, there was a year where there was actually a major cut from the state per FTE that brought us back. So you'll often hear people in my role or trustees that will say, well, we're just now back to the 2009 level of funding per FTE. But for us, I don't know if they're related as much as this has been what the history has been. I do know that overall the funding for community colleges across the state is technically down because most people college enrollment has been down, so the $50 increase will result in state savings to be reallocated for other programs or services. But we'll continue to advocate, and I'm sure that you all continue to support us though.
Thank you. Are there other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are there any reports from individual legislators or activity? Mr. Didio?
Thank you. I want to give a brief report on the Intercounty Association of Western New York. It's a subcommittee of, if you've heard me say this, a subcommittee of the New York State Association of Counties. And every month, or most months, they're set up in different counties a meeting. And this particular month, Cayuga County sponsored the meeting. It was at Lakeview Country Club last Friday. We had a great turnout for Cayuga County being so far east of the rest of the county, so we don't expect too many when we have this, and we don't have it that often. But if we keep pushing and we get door prizes donated by places like the Aurora Inn, that was handled through the drive of our chairman, Keith Batman. I'll just tell you what the door prize was, and it was won by a legislator from one of the western counties. It's a dinner for two and an overnight for two at the Aurora Inn. So with tax, that's about $427. It worked out pretty well. But again, I want to thank everyone that did attend, was able to attend. We had a lot of help. If you attended these things, you would see that you wouldn't hardly ever, or if you wouldn't ever see a sheriff department bring up their command center and their color guard. So the honor guard was there. This was set up through the sheriff and Under Sheriff Jim Stoll. I thank you for that. And we did have I want to name the honor guard: Chuck Jane, Tyler Bishop, Paul Cowan, Lisa Arrington. It was pretty good. It's different. We don't see it from any other county. And we had Dave Harkness, who was in the command center. Now, if anyone hasn't seen the command center, it's a trailer that's set up by the Cayuga County Sheriff Department with all kinds of updated missiles and such in case there's a problem. So we didn't have any missiles, but Dave Harkness did set off the Cayuga County Sheriff Department drone.